Hello, and welcome back to Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City, where we explore the history of Troy, New York, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, John Salka. In this episode, we continue our conversation with Matt Callahan, Vice President and General Manager of the Tri-City ValleyCats. If you haven't heard part one, I would strongly recommend you go back and check out the first half before diving into part two. Our chat continues on the ValleyCats' move to the Independent Frontier League and the obstacles the club overcame during COVID and the contraction of Major League Baseball's minor league system. We also dig into the archives to explore Troy's deep links to baseball's earliest days, including the first ever Grand Slam in MLB history, hit by a Troy Trojan right here in Rensselaer County. As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to get notified about future episodes. Also, if you like what you're hearing, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also head over to TroyStoryPod.com for the latest updates on upcoming chapters. And now, without further ado, here is part two of our interview with Matt Callahan, Vice President and General Manager of the Tri-City ValleyCats. So we touched on this a little earlier in the interview. You talked about the ValleyCats are now in the Frontier League, and the team was obviously previously. This is the team's been around since '02, so this is the 22nd year. The team was previously in the New York Penn League, and we also mentioned COVID, and there was kind of the confluence of events that happened in 2020 for the ValleyCats and minor league teams across the country contending with restrictions on in-person events, and then obviously this major contraction or change in the professional minor league baseball system, the restructuring the leagues and the affiliations. What was that period like for the ValleyCats when you talk about everything that was happening to the team simultaneously, and then obviously juxtaposed against everything else that was happening to everyone? It must have been an incredibly difficult time for a baseball team.
Yeah, that was a stressful, difficult time. And I think, the hardest part was that all of it was really out of our hands. There wasn't anything that we could do or couldn't do, that would have changed the outcome. Really, we obviously lobbied the best we could and tried to make everybody aware. Is pretty complicated situation. So I mean, really what happened, Major League Baseball, probably going back to 2019, started to introduce this plan that wasn't really ever confirmed. It was more sort of whispered, and you'd hear bits and pieces of it, that they were going to contract a number of minor league teams. They were going to move away from all of the short season levels. So most major league teams at that time had, upwards of 6 minor league teams. And they basically decided that they were going to eliminate 2 minor league teams from all of the major league organizations. So each major league team would only have 4 minor league teams. They would have AAA, AA, High A, and Low A. Previously, there was multiple short season clubs. So we were short season in the New York Penn League, short season Single A, and they did away with all of the short season levels. So the New York Penn League was wiped out entirely. There were a few teams for various reasons, the Brooklyn Cyclones, which are owned by the Mets, and a few others that ended up being transitioned to long season A clubs and state affiliated. We were initially under the impression, and we had heard and we had read and we had seen and rumor this, rumor that we were going to remain a long season, or we were going to be transitioned to a long season Single A affiliate and we heard, multiple rumors on who that team might be. Over time, you heard different things. You heard less. Everything became less and less clear. And by the end of it, when we found out on social media, when Baseball America published a list of who the affiliates were, the music stopped and we didn't have a chair. Um, so, we had been having conversations internally about, okay, what if we don't end up with an affiliation? What are we going to do? Major League Baseball had, you know, tried to steer some of the New York Penn League teams towards a what's called the Draft League. It's a collegiate wooden bat summer league team, so it's amateur. We didn't feel that was the right model or right fit for us. We just didn't like the way that path looked. So, we decided, and I give our ownership group at the time, led by Rick Murphy and Doug Gladstone, a tremendous amount of credit for just being steadfast in that we're going to maintain professional baseball in the capital region. That's what we've been doing. That's what we came to the capital region to do, and we're going to continue to do that. So we started looking into the independent leagues, which had become MLB partner leagues, and I'm using heavy quotes on the word partner, but we won't get too far into that. Um, so we started exploring the Atlantic League. We started exploring the Frontier League. We looked into the American Association, which doesn't really have a geographic connection to the East Coast. And after talking to Frontier League teams and the leadership within the league, we felt like this was the right fit for us. It made sense geographically. There's another team in New York, the New York Boulders. There's two teams in New Jersey, and there's a couple teams in Canada, as well as a number of teams out west. We're playing in Chicago right now. But we thought that the league had a tremendous opportunity to continue to grow. The quality of play is outstanding. When we were in the New York Penn League, we were rookie ball, so we were getting guys that were 21, 22, getting drafted out of college, and showing up here and in the middle of the summer and just starting to play. So it was less experienced. You had a higher trajectory, kind of that shooting star where we had George Springer here, we had Jose Altuve, although there wasn't anybody that saw Altuve play here that thought he was going to be what he is today, regardless of those that may claim otherwise. So, you had that ceiling, but the floor was lower. There was a lot of errors. There was a lot of unpolished play in the New York Penn League. The Frontier League is it's an older, more experienced player. Even the rookies in our league have played more than most of the players that had played in the Penn League. And we have the other side of the equation too, where over the course of our three plus seasons in the New York Penn League, or excuse me, in the Frontier League, we've had I think 5 or 6 players that have already played in Major League Baseball and are looking for a path back for whatever reason. And this league can be that path to showcase a guy like Andrew Bellotti, who was with us in spring training in 2021, was signed by the Marlins and then pitched in the World Series for the Phillies a couple years ago. So, there are players that are kind of on both parts of the journey, so to speak. You have young guys that are just trying to get their first opportunity, and then you have older guys that have had an opportunity and are trying to get another opportunity back. So that was kind of the genesis of our move to the Frontier League. We play a longer season. We start earlier, so we start in mid May with our actual games. Spring training, as I mentioned before, starts in April, so it's extended, which comes with its challenges. But I'm just happy that we were able to make it work and to keep the franchise here and to continue to be a part of the community. Financially, just to be candid, I mean, it's a much more challenging model than the New York Penn League because we don't have that partner that we had in the Houston Astros that shared costs with us and handled some of the player decisions. That's all local now. That's all on us, both in terms of executing that, but also the finances of it. And you have a guy that has Tommy John surgery like we did in 2021, and I think you can probably assume what that does to your workers' comp and your medical bills and things like that. So it's challenging, but we're going into our 4th year with it, and I think having been through what we've been through over the past 4 seasons, I'm incredibly proud of the team that we have, our staff, and the group that's been able to kind of come through the other side. And I think we're finally really positioned for a big step forward here in 2024.
I imagine though, a standpoint of not just the team growth, but for you personally, I mean, having to assume those responsibilities while maybe stressful is also a big opportunity for personal growth and professional growth to be able to say, like, not only are we running a ball team, we're taking on these new responsibilities this deep into, you're talking a 17-year career in professional minor league baseball, however you want to characterize it in sports. I think that's uh, perhaps the silver lining, maybe, that you're now responsible for things that, were well outside your traditional responsibilities. And obviously you're succeeding 4 years in. I think that's something you can hang your proverbial baseball hat on, you know.
Absolutely. It's funny. People ask me frequently. Occasionally I'll present for college sports management classes or high schools or whatever, and popular question: what's the favorite part of your job? What's the hardest part of your job? And it's the same thing for me. My favorite part of the job is how many different aspects of the organization and the operation I'm involved in. It keeps it fresh. I have the opportunity to learn, to do, to impact. But sometimes it's incredibly challenging to try to know where to focus and to try to figure out, okay, I need to spend my time on this, and then I can move to this, and then I can move to this, but this is on fire, so then I have to go do that. And that's no different than any small business, but it definitely comes with some additional layers in this newer model.
Like what you hear? Well, then it might be time to give us a flattering review. Reviews are the best way to make the magical podcast algorithm suggest our modest little podcast to other listeners. If you're feeling extra generous, please share this episode with a friend, family member, or that special person in your life. They'll thank you for it, and we will be forever in your debt. Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City, streaming everywhere you get your podcasts. I think a lot of people would be really surprised, those who perhaps aren't follow baseball closely or interested in baseball history, City Troy's deep connection to baseball. Baseball's, earliest days as a sport. Troy Haymakers, the established in the immediate wake of the Civil War, which eventually became the Troy Trojans in 1878, when they joined the National League. That's going to be really cool as the minor league ball team for the Capital Region, hence Tri-City, to be able to look back and say, you're carrying the torch for baseball in an area where the sport goes back to, again, the Civil War, immediately after the Civil War, 1865, 1860 something.
It's an honor. I mean, to be honest, and it's a great opportunity for us as an organization. You look back at that rich history that started right here in Troy. You see the monuments and some of the plaques down at Knickerbocker Field. You hear about the people that went over to Heritage Park when the Albany Colony Yankees were here, and all the players that came through there, the Jeters, the Pettits, the Posadas, the legendary Ron Guidry game where they roped off the outfield, and everybody in the Capital Region was there. It's incredible, and I think for us, we try to preserve that and put our own stamp on it. We do a couple Capital Region Baseball Heritage Nights every year. That's typically one of our bobblehead giveaways. So we did a Johnny Evers bobblehead years ago. We were able, through some help from the city of Troy, we were able to get the San Francisco Giants to bring the World Series trophy to the ballpark for viewing when they won the World Series, just tracing those roots all the way back to the Haymakers and the Trojans. So it's I think it's a fantastic platform, and just a good opportunity to highlight how much history there is, both baseball and otherwise, in the region. Any chance that we can get, and I think to to highlight that history and that connection for the capital region and for Troy in particular is a special opportunity for us.
Yeah, when I was at the stadium, we were doing that little walking tour and the pre-interview in some of the box seats. You have some of the I'm assuming they're recreations of the throwback uniforms, the Haymakers and the Trojans, which I think was really cool. And also the wall had been walls had been adorned with sort of the baseball timeline. And I think that's kind of cool for, you know, again, just a tip of the hat, another baseball um pun here, a tip of the hat to pro ball history and its connection. And you mentioned Knickerbocker Park. There's a ESPN.com story about remembering. It's entitled "Remembering the Long Ago Major League History of Troy, New York," written by Steve Wolf, and it just talks about it talks about sort of the demise of the Troy Trojans, just talking about how few people actually showed up to the final game of the Troy Trojans. But then it goes on to say the Pilgrims stand before a monument that pays tribute to the Trojans who were asked to leave the National League 134 years ago to make way for the franchise you now know as the San Francisco Giants. And you just alluded to that as well. Why you mentioned that when the Trojans left, they made way for the team that eventually became the Giants, and why the Giants brought the trophy here. I will put the link to that article in the show notes for those who are interested in reading it. It's a really fascinating story. The team only played 4 seasons, I believe, in the National League, and generally not great seasons, I guess, if you look at the statistics and their record at the time. But there's some great photos of the team at the time, and just it actually also delves into a little bit of Troy's history as well. So pretty cool story. There's also the most, for me, the most notable bit of baseball trivia being the first official documented Grand Slam in MLB history happened here in the Capital Region in Rensselaer County, in the what is now the city of Rensselaer, directly across the river from Albany, where Roger Connor became the first player to hit a Grand Slam on September 10th, 1881, for the National League. So it did happen in Rensselaer County, and it did happen in what is now the city of Rensselaer, but it was hit by a Troy Trojan player. So I think that's kind of like a noteworthy thing to bring up. And there's a great story on the Times Union as well, and I will also drop that in the show notes. It's historian finds first Grand Slam in MLB history in Rensselaer, and the subheadline is "With the new season just days away, local historian Matt Millett finds evidence the ultimate homer was first hit on the Hudson." So it's another really cool kind of moment in baseball history that continues to tie back to literally right here in the capital region.
Yeah, there's so much history like that, and what I think is really interesting. Just kind of jumping back to the present, people they look at guys that have gone on to play in Major League Baseball or play in minor league baseball, get drafted. Getting drafted is a huge accomplishment. Even more so now, where it used to be 40 rounds, they cut it to 20 when they made the changes to the minor league structure. But you think about those players coming from San Diego, anywhere in California, Texas, places that are warm, Florida, where they can play year round. But the amount of players that have been drafted recently in the capital region is incredible. There's so much talent and baseball talent here. You have Garrett Whitley, you have Kevin Smith. I think he's been up and down this year. Rooney, Kennedy. There's so many good baseball players, and I'm leaving out a whole bunch of them. But that's impressed me since moving here and seeing the high school programs, and they usually play the sectional tournament out here. Ian Anderson, had a legendary game in the sectional. So to see those players kind of carry the torch and make as much of an impact as the guys from Florida and wherever else, I think speaks volumes to the passion and the commitment to baseball in the capital region.
So we're going to kind of come to the end of the interview here, and Matt, I want to thank you for taking so much time out of your day on a Saturday to record this podcast when the idea of doing a baseball episode came up, I just thought it was perfect. You just can't not talk about the Valley Cats, and I always appreciated the relationship that we had when I worked for the city, when I worked for the mayor, and the way that we could promote the team and help celebrate Troy, because like we've been talking about this whole time, the Valley Cats and Troy and baseball writ large are sort of like intrinsically linked. They're just woven together. They have been for so long, and the city's so fortunate to have high quality baseball, minor league ball, in the city. So thank you for that. But I kind of just wanted to wrap up. You talked a little bit about your favorite, your memories of Troy and coming to the region for the first time before you got hired, and your I would say your bar crawl maybe, the before you
Yeah,
got hired.
bar crawl interview. Sure, yeah.
So I guess the larger question we've been asking sort of at the end of episodes now, it's just like, what is your favorite part about Troy? Something that you love. Obviously, you're so intrinsically linked to the team now that you're a dad, and you've obviously, your life tends to change as you get older. Are there other things now that you enjoy about the city? I'm assuming when you're here, you're spending most of your time at the stadium, but are there other things that you really enjoy about Troy that you want to share?
Yeah, I love Troy. I have a passion for Troy, and I remember when we first moved to the capital region in 2008, and we're getting advice from people, and people are saying you should live here, you should live there, and I think the capital region has so much to offer. And I think just as an outsider moving into the region, that gave me a different perspective maybe than some of the folks that have been here for a long time. But we immediately we looked at a bunch of places and we just fell in love with Troy. I think the character, the architecture obviously is amazing, but just the character of the city, the people, the buildings, the businesses, the establishments, it was something that just felt comfortable for my wife and I right off the bat. I think the walkability of the city where you can we lived downtown for 10 years and we still own property downtown. Still involved with various organizations downtown. So I do spend quite a bit of time in Troy. And I think just being able to walk from your building, your apartment to basically anything you want. You can find great food, you can find great breweries, you can find great retail shops, unique retail shops, right? That have crafted items and things like that. And then take another, you know, 30 steps further and you're at the waterfront, and really one of the only accessible riverfronts in the capital region. So, I just have always loved that about Troy, and it's just it became a home for us. We lived there for 10 years. Our first daughter was born in Troy, and we drive by that place, and my daughter will point it out. That's where we lived there. That's where I was born. So, it has a special place in my heart, in our family's heart, and it's something that we're passionate about. Hopefully, seeing the city continue to grow and be successful. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunities in Troy, not without its challenges, like any small city. But I think that there's a lot of positive momentum and good trajectory to see the city continue to thrive.
Got a question? Have a suggestion? We want to hear from you. Drop us a line at mail@troystorypod.com. You can always find us on social media, including YouTube, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, TikTok, and even the digital wasteland known as X, formerly Twitter. What's the most important thing that you see or that you hope for the team to achieve in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years looking ahead? I don't know what the plans are. You've been in the Frontier League now for 4 years. Is there a broader vision from the front office as you look out on sort of like the baseball landscape and deciding on where the team wants to be in the next 5 to 10 years?
I would say, for us, the Frontier League is growing, which is great. We added another market, Brockton, Massachusetts. So to have the league expanding into the kind of the greater Boston area, I think is a huge opportunity. The league's looking at some other expansion opportunities, so we could go from 16 teams to 18, maybe even to 20 in the near future. So there's a lot of stability, growth, and opportunity within the Frontier League. People ask us all the time, do you think you'll get an affiliation back? And really, that's out of our hands. That's not something that we have any control over at this point. And most of the rumblings that I've heard is that Major League Baseball may reduce again the number of minor league affiliates, and if that's the case, I think that's a good opportunity for a league like us, because it's going to push more good players, it's going to push more good operators and good owners into independent leagues, and just kind of bolster the opportunities within leagues like ours. I think for us, we want to make sure that we're viable and sustainable and here for the long term. And I think part of that is looking at the facility. It's a great facility, but it's 22 years old, so there's things that need to be addressed. And if we're going to continue to grow and continue to be relevant and be able to provide that top-notch experience, we need to start looking at some of the infrastructure items and playing surface and other opportunities and amenities that we can introduce to continue to be a successful minor league team.
If folks are interested in finding more about the team, upcoming schedule, games, etc., where can they go?
Our website's a great resource for all of that, www.tcvalleycats.com. Our social media as well, we have a pretty substantial Facebook, Instagram, Twitter presence, and those are good avenues also. That's all linked to the website, so you can find that information there too.
Is there anything you want to leave folks with, a preview for the 17th? Who are the ValleyCats playing?
We are playing the Ottawa Titans, so we'll have an international clash to kick off the home schedule. No, we've had tremendous fan support, tremendous community and corporate support in the Capital Region, and I think this year's shaping up to be a really fun, strong, and exciting year. So we hope that people come out, help us pack the Joe, and show the new players on the team what it's all about playing in the Capital Region, and give us that home field advantage.
Are there any rivalries that have developed in the 4 years? Does like the Cats have like a specific team that's just like, okay, this is the game. If you want to catch one, like this is it. This is going to be hyper competitive.
So we had some very intense rivalries over the past few years. Some of that stemmed from our manager Pete and a few of the other managers who didn't see eye to eye, and that really kind of trickled down to the rest of the team. But our division is very, very competitive. So the Quebec Capitals have won the Frontier League the past 2 years, so that's always a good series to check out. We had a heated rivalry last year with the New York Boulders, which is our closest geographic team. So that's always a good series to check out as well. They have a local player too, Aaron Donna, who I think grew up in Gloversville, if I remember correctly. So a little community connection there. But yeah, it's quality baseball. It's intense baseball, and I think people will be, if they haven't been to a game, will be very pleasantly not surprised, but very pleasantly. It will be a pleasant experience. How's that? If I can get the words out correctly.
Thanks. Well, I hope if everybody hasn't had a chance to get to the stadium, if you want to, definitely take the opportunity and go catch a ValleyCats game this season. It's awesome. I said it earlier. It's a great experience. It's a great stadium. I've never had a bad time at the Joe. Always enjoy catching baseball, and there's nothing better than being outside for 3 hours. You know what I mean? And even better when you've got night games, ending them with the fireworks is always really enjoyable too. So, Matt, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I'm really happy that you took the time to do it.
Yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate you having me on, and for all the kind words. Definitely a lot of fun to catch up, and thank you very much.
Many thanks to Matt for graciously agreeing to be part of the pod. There were so many things we just didn't have time to get to, including Matt's thoughts on the sprawling Ken Burns documentary on the sport, what his at-bat song would be, it's Cochise by the now-defunct supergroup Audioslave, if you're wondering, or his favorite jams, Pearl Jam and the Allman Brothers. We couldn't even fit in a mention of the classic Conan O'Brien old-timey baseball sketch, but I sure learned a lot, and I hope you did too. The ValleyCats officially kick off their 2024 season at the Joe on Friday, May 17th with their home opener, and we're wishing them the best of luck. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button on whatever streaming service you're using right now to get notified about upcoming chapters. If you dig the show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. This is very helpful for getting others to find our show. You can also visit TroyStoryPod.com to get signed up for our email updates and check out our growing list of previous episodes. Until next time, love yourself, love one another, and may Pod save Troy. Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City, is hosted, written, edited, and produced by me, John Salka. Our theme music is by Stephen J. Goldman at Four Legs Records. Like what you heard? Please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City. This is incredibly helpful for getting others to find our show. Want to know more? Visit TroyStoryPod.com to see upcoming episodes, guests, and bonus content. Thanks for listening. The views or opinions expressed by guests are their own and not of the host or Troy Story, a podcast for the Collar City.